can be what you want to be. Be what you want to be. You just be what you want to be with me.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Happy AF. I am Sambowker and I'm super excited to have you here with me today. So, what is going on in your world? Let me tell you what is going on in mine. Tonight, yes, it's tonight. See, now I normally film this earlier in the day, but you're going to get me real and raw in the evening. Today I want to talk about a topic that I think can be a topic that is kind of pretty brutal for a lot of people. And in fact, even just the word itself has so many negative connotations. And today I want to kind of unpack that a little bit because I really think that the meaning with which we assign to a word determines how we feel about it, right? And the word I want to talk about today is addiction, okay? Here's the thing. Right? This is Happy AF, people. happyaftv. This is the place to be if you want to learn how to do life as your happiest best self, right? And the thing is that I think to do that, you really need to start having an honest conversation with yourself about who you are, where you want to go, what matters, and what allows you to actually feel happy, right? And so the reason addiction, I think, is an interesting topic is that, truthfully, I think everybody is addicted. I think everybody has addiction in themselves, right? And the thing is that when people talk about the word addiction, right, it's always assumed, I think, that we're talking about, drug addiction or gambling addiction or sex addiction. There's always like a connotation that the word addiction is this negative thing. And, okay, I understand that that's how people reference it and frame it. But what if you could start thinking about the word addiction and you could utilize it in a more positive frame of reference, right? Because I think that, as I said, how you determine the way you feel is determined based on the story with which you assign to that. So I want to go back a little bit and I want to chat with you a bit about, my journey with addiction and my story and how it's changed over the years. And this is really relevant because I think that so many people have got this challenge in their life where like they'll come to me and they'll say, Sam, gosh, I've got a chocolate addiction, or Sam, I've got this gambling addiction. Sam, I've got this alcohol addiction. And what that means to me is that they have decided that whatever it is that they're doing, right, fill in the blank, okay, food, alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever it is that they are then associating with addiction, they are basically, what they're saying to me is that they think they're doing too much of it and the negative impact of that is greater than the benefit of doing the thing, right? And so when we talk about addiction, okay, I think that someone can align themselves with the word addict when they put their hand up and they say, hey, my name is Sam and I'm, a drug addict, or my name is Sam and I'm, I struggle with alcohol addiction, or my name is Sam and I struggle with food addiction. Before that, I'm someone that maybe just enjoys alcohol or enjoys food and doesn't actually see it as a problem. So when does it go from being just something that you enjoy doing and that is okay to an addiction and something that is potentially a problem? And more importantly, what exactly is the addiction being caused by? So my belief, okay, around addiction is quite simple. Whatever it is that you are doing to the degree that you think is not positive, right? You're doing it because you're numbing something. Okay. And so it doesn't matter what your poison is. And, I know the name of this show is Addiction. I reckon we're all addicted. And what's your poison, right? You can be addicted to exercise, okay? And if it's something that you do and you love and you go every day and you train your body and you get to be fit and strong and healthy and you're addicted, for want of a better word, to training, is that a bad thing? Well, it could be. But only if you decide that it's a bad thing, right? If you decide, if you're one of these people that has a story that if you don't go and train in the morning, then you're really cranky, then that's no different than someone who says, well, if I don't have my cup of coffee, I'm really cranky. If I don't have 9 hours of sleep, I'm really cranky. So therefore, I could argue that person is addicted to having their 9 hours of sleep. And if they don't get their 9 hours of sleep, they're cranky. So you can see, like, with all of these ways in which we describe things, that kind of determines how we feel. So the question I really have for you is, when can addiction serve you positively and when is it a negative thing, right? Is it always negative? What if I'm addicted to growth, right? Which I am. I have a massive addiction to growing and learning and changing and moving forward, right? I'm totally addicted to that. And I don't really know what other word I could use, potentially obsessed, but that also could have a negative connotation. I could turn it around and go, well, I'm just committed. Like, I am hardcore committed to growth. And if I said that, you would look at me and go, wow, you're amazing. Like, you're committed to growth. Well done, Sam. But if I said I was addicted to growth, then that might again have this negative connotation. And so I know this seems like maybe perhaps a strange conversation to have, but I find that so many people that I work with beat the shit out of themselves, and I'm talking like dead set, are really down on themselves for a pattern of behaviour that they are doing, which they have deemed an addiction. And I'm not saying it's not a problem, but the reality is that if we sit back and have a look at whatever it is that they are doing, I'm more interested in why they're doing it. I'm more interested in digging in. What is the root cause? Like, why are they numbing? Why are they eating chocolate every night? Why are they feeling like they need to drink a bottle of wine every night? Why do they feel like they need to watch porn all the time? And what is the impact of that? You know, I've been talking to a lot of different people lately, and porn seems to be a big one that comes up. And in my head, I must admit, I'd never really thought of it as an issue. But if you're doing that, for argument's sake, as a way of, you know, procrastinating from things that are important, things that you really know that you need to get done, and you're using every time you kind of put in this situation where it's difficult for you, you maybe go off and numb with porn, or you numb with, you know, a binge of Netflix, right, then that potentially can be a problem. So what I'm really interested in getting people to start becoming aware of is, what are the patterns that you are doing that are serving you, and what are the patterns that you do that are not? And are they an addiction? And if you even want to put that word addiction, how could we start framing it so that it's useful? Because there is a secondary gain for anything that you're doing, for any pattern of behaviour you're doing. So I'll give you an example, okay? Like, I work with a lot of people that smoke. And I'm a single mum, so I'll just use me as an example, right? If I work with someone who is a single mum, okay, and the only time that they get 2 minutes or 3 minutes or perhaps 5 minutes away from their children is when they pop outside and they stop and they have a cigarette, right? Now, in that moment, that person is having a cigarette, they're resetting, they're doing some deep breathing, right? And they're having 5 minutes to themselves so that when they go back in and deal with their children, they're a better mum because they're calmer, they've had some time to themselves. Now, any parents out there know that children can go through that stage where you can't even go and sit on the freaking toilet without the kid going, Mom or Dad, I need you, Mom, Dad. And you're like, oh my God, I'm on the toilet, right? But with smoking, for instance, you get to go outside and it's much easier to go, hey, no, I'm smoking. This is gross. This is disgusting. I don't want you to come out here. So if that person comes to me and says, I want to stop smoking, I'm addicted to cigarettes, I'm going to sit back and say, okay, well, yes, there's a physical addiction to the cigarettes. And yes, I agree, cigarettes are probably not the best for you, but the time out that you're getting away from your children, I'm going to argue that's incredibly healthy. So we need to find a way to still give this mum time out from her children without smoking, right? So that she can go back in calm and having reset her nervous system. And so this is where we now need to help her frame the story from, okay, this cigarette addiction is not helpful. Let's get you off that. But what if I now turned around and said, okay, I need to get you addicted to the concept of self-care. I need to get you addicted to the concept of time out, because if you get that time out, you're then going to be a better mum. You're going to have more patience, more tolerance. You're going to be able to deal with situations that potentially fry your circuitry and make your brain want to explode, but you're going to be able to do it better now because you've given yourself that time out. So I might teach that woman breathing exercises, right? I might teach her some meditation processes. I might teach her, how to go and spend a moment dancing out all of the energy in her body and just giving herself a moment to anchor in some positive thoughts. And then train her brain to become addicted to that. So the reason I guess I keep using this word addicted is that you can see that like the word in itself doesn't actually mean anything, but it's the connotation that comes with that, right? If I say I'm an addict, people will always make an assumption that A, it's bad, right? If I said I was a junkie, right, people are going to automatically have all these ideas in their head. But my good mate Gabby calls her little followers soul junkies, right? Now, she's an ex-addict, so, she's used the play on words, right? And so, okay, well, what about a growth addict? Same thing, soul junkie, gym junkie. We've all heard that, and we don't look at those people and go, oh my God, they're so terrible, they're gym junkies. In fact, in a lot of places, they're probably applauded for taking care of their health and well-being. But those guys are just as, like the ones that you would actually call gym junkies, the ones that have to train. Like you could argue that that potentially is a bad thing because what they're needing is that constant hit of dopamine. Or you could argue that by them doing that, they're getting to be healthy and they're getting to be strong. And yeah, all right, they're getting their natural hit of dopamine and endorphins and all of that, but it's serving them to be happy, healthy and strong. So I guess I was interested to talk about this today because I wonder whether you consider yourself an addict, and I wonder how much you judge someone else for their addiction. Weight is one of the most obvious addictions that people can see. Okay, if you see someone who's struggling with their weight and you don't struggle with your weight, it's very easy for you to make a sweeping judgment about the fact that maybe they make poor food choices or that, like they don't have good self-control. I look at someone that's struggling with their weight, and if they come to me and ask me for help, I'm not looking at them through any lens other than why are they there, right? How is it that they've gotten to that point and they're wanting help and support? Is it sugar that is actually the issue? Is it the fact that they eat bigger portion size? Is it that they are not educated and don't understand about food? These days, that's not as likely, right? Because we've got so much information, but we are also bombarded with information about what's right and what's wrong. You should fast until this time. Nope, you should only eat vegetarian. Nope, actually you should eat paleo. You should only eat meat. Nope, you should eat. So like, honestly, for the average person, unless you've got a nutritionist in the family, you don't know what you're doing. But what I'm actually looking at in that moment is why are they numbing themselves with food? Because they'll tell me, they'll say, well, I just really love sugar. And yes, sugar is just as addictive as nicotine and cocaine, for sure. It's probably the worst of all of them. But what is the feeling that they are numbing in that moment by eating that block of chocolate? More often than not, I've found that it's loneliness or it's vulnerability, not wanting to feel those emotions. And so they're pushing them down, right? And I mean, I've certainly gone down that path myself. I shifted my addictions from, the hard stuff to the lighter stuff to the very socially acceptable stuff. And then I had to get to the point where I went, okay, well, actually, this shit's still here. If I don't handle it, I'm just going to keep shifting the addiction. And so I don't really believe in addiction in the way that maybe mainstream does. I'm not poo-pooing things like Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous because I do think they do some really great work and I know people that have gotten great success. However, it's not the way that I feel is what best serves the people that show up on my doorstep. And the main reason for that is that those business models, for want of a better word, are very much getting people to identify with the fact that they are an addict. Hi, my name is Sam and I'm an alcoholic. So I'm constantly reiterating to myself and programming myself that I actually have a problem with this thing. As opposed to saying, hi, my name's Sam. I used to do too much alcohol because I had all this untreated trauma and unresolved stuff that I hadn't handled. I've now handled it and now I choose to abstain from alcohol because, I don't want to risk it. Or actually, I can now enjoy a glass of wine or two and not feel the need to obliterate myself with 3 bottles every day because all that stuff I used to numb myself with, I've dealt with. So I want to ask you again to go back to where you're at in your life and ask yourself, like, can addiction be a bad thing? Yes, of course it can. If you are an addict, does that mean you always will be? No, I don't believe so, right? I believe now I have a take it or leave it attitude with many things, right? I don't do drugs because I choose to not do drugs anymore. But the simple fact is, although I would never ever suggest that this is the way to go, but before I became completely off everything, I did end up getting to a point where I had a take it or leave it attitude. And if you'd have told me that 30 years earlier that, I could be that person, I would never have believed it. Now I choose to not do that shit anymore because I'm smarter and I'm wiser and it's just not my cup of tea. But there's people I know that have a belief that once they've been an addict with something, they'll never, ever recover from it. And I think that's an incredibly dangerous thought process. Not to mention, I think it tars people with this shame of, addiction. Oh, an addiction runs in my family. And we've been told this story for years. And look, I just don't think it's true. I think that our mind is incredibly powerful. And I think that if you constantly tell someone you're an addict, you'll always be an addict, your mother was an alcoholic, your father was an alcoholic, it runs in the family, then you're patterning in that thought process. Now, I'm not saying that scientifically we can't go out and prove that stuff, but the neuroscience side of things, like the latest information that comes in, talks about breaking up, I guess the part of a person, and I'll explain this poorly because I'm not a scientist, but if you just were to think of a person and go, there's three parts, like 1/3 is their genetics, right? The other 2/3 is made up of a whole bunch of other stuff, which I won't explain very well, but just know this, it comes way more down to the choices that you make, the thoughts that you have, and the ideas with which you choose to think about life. And there is multiple cases where people have been told a story. I mean, the placebo effect, this is a perfect example, right? If the brain wasn't so powerful, why do we test drugs on people that are just sugar tablets and have dramatic results of success, right? It is a known effect, the placebo effect. Give someone a tablet, tell them it's going to be doing something, and all of a sudden, magically, it does. I mean, I saw one of my clients, their prescription the other day, and when I read it, it actually looks to me like the pill that they've given him as a happy pill is actually magnesium. But he thinks he's on some level of antidepressants. Now, I think that's great because he's in his head, he's like, I'm happy. I'm stoked that that's where we're at right now. But that just proves the point, right? So your mind is really powerful. So if you're struggling with something right now, whether it is food or alcohol or drugs, if there is anything you are doing to the degree with which you have decided it's a problem, then start looking a little bit underneath it. Don't think that the thing you're doing is actually the problem. It's a symptom and it's numbing something. And if you just sit quietly, take a few deep breaths and just tune in to the feelings in your body, you will start understanding why you are choosing to do that. Is it loneliness? Is it a past trauma that you haven't dealt with? Is it the fact that you don't speak up when you'd like to? Is it the fact that you let people walk all over you? Is it the fact that you are doing a job that doesn't serve you? Is it the fact that you have all of these amazing hidden talents that you're not sharing with the world for fear of being judged? There's always a reason why we are numbing. And if you just give yourself permission for a minute or two to breathe into that place and start listening to what is going on, you may just find that that thing you are numbing right now is actually your greatest superpower. And if you just gave yourself permission to just feel the discomfort of it for a second or two, you might find that the thing that you think you're struggling with the most is actually the thing that's going to propel you into the greatest, most fabulous, shiny AF place that you get to be in this world. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about addiction, because I use my history and the lies that I used to tell myself, which is I was a drug addict. That was the lie I used to tell myself and I believed it. Now I just say, I am someone who used to go hard and do lots of different things on lots of different levels. I learnt a lot, right? I used to struggle with things. I don't struggle with them anymore. So I've just reframed those past stories. I've looked at my history and gone, you know what? Everything I have been through, now gets to be something that I can help someone else with. You know, my mess from the past has become my message. I can take people from depression and sadness and shame and guilt and all these places that we reference as yucky, and I can propel them into a place where I like to call happy AF, right? And you can fill in the blank, but let's just chuck in some F words for fun, right? You already know the beep version. What about fun, financial, free, fabulous, fit, fierce, ferocious, fantabulous, happy AF? It's your life, guys. You get to go out and choose to be who you want to be. And if you want to learn how to do happy, if you want to keep, tuning into the capacity that you have as a human being to train this supercomputer, right? I'm spitting everywhere. That's how excited I am. If you want to learn how to train this supercomputer to do happy more often than not and be happy AF, then this is the place to be. Right? happyaftv is the place to be, because I'm going to do everything in my power to keep showing up and smashing all these limitations, demolishing all of these thought processes that are stopping you from living your life happy. I don't care what's happened in your past. I don't care what, horrific things you've had to go through. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that without love. I'm sad if you've had horrible traumas and loss and grief. I get it. But I want to help you use everything that has happened up until this moment in time. I want to help you turn that trauma into triumph. I want to help you use all of that mess that has been the past of your life to propel you forward. And I know I can show you how. And it's as simple as learning how to, it's easy. It's simple, it's not easy is what I mean to say. There is little steps that you can take, but one is learning the power and the art of the reframe. Right? If you find yourself going, oh my God, I'm struggling so much right now. What if you reframe that and went, you know what, this is really uncomfortable. The greater the discomfort, the greater the growth. Therefore, I'm growing. And you know what? Growth is good. In fact, I'm going to choose to become addicted to growth, because if I'm not growing, I'm dying. Immediately, that's going to make you feel better than you felt when you were in a space of struggle. So how can you reframe things that people have perhaps told you or thoughts you've had about yourself? And I use addiction because that is, for a long time, something that I wrapped around me as an identity, and I had so much shame around it. And now I'm like, you know what? Change the word addicted to committed, or keep the word addicted and just choose to be addicted to things that serve you. I choose to be addicted to having good friends in my life. I choose to be addicted to having truth tellers in my life. I choose to be addicted to speaking truth with kindness. I choose to be addicted to doing everything in my power to be the best mum I can be. What addiction are you going to have that's going to set you free from a past story? Anyway, that's me, guys. I hope that's been helpful. If you have found this helpful, please make sure that you share it with someone who you think needs to hear this message today, because if you're hearing it, chances are you know someone that needs to hear it as well. I love you so much, and I'm so excited to be sharing all of these stories with you. And I will see you next week for another episode of Happy AF TV. This is me out. Peace, love,